what's going on, guys? It's James here. Today we're going to be talking about the Moog Mother-32 again. So in the last video we kind of made a bass patch with it, which kind of, had a lot more low tones and stuff to it. So today we're going to make something a little bit more melodic. So again, this is a mono oscillator synth, but we're going to kind of mess around with it to make like this really interesting, almost like retro-y sounding pulse width, sound with it. So again, we're gonna do the double oscillator, trick and everything. I'm gonna go through this in a little bit more depth in a few minutes, but let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment below. But without further ado, let's just get right into it. So right here we have the regular kind of stereotypical Moog patch with just the saw wave. So just regular buzzy saw wave, nothing too special. But now we're going to use the patch bay and, edit a lot of the, knobs and everything, values across the Mother-32 to make it something, its own unique sound to it. So one thing I want to do is I want to use a pulse wave. So I had mentioned this earlier, we're going to make kind of a more of a retro-y sound. So I'm going to turn the VCO wave to pulse. And now we have a square wave. So since let me turn that down. So now you can hear that pulse wave. It's the typical, square wave. The pulse width is at 50%. So it's just a perfect kind of rectangle, equal spacing pulse wave. So we're going to modulate that actually and kind of create a different sound with it. But right now I just kind of want to get the base of the patch kind of set up here. So I'm going to turn the VCO mod amount to, I would say, about maybe like 70-ish%. And leave the VCO mod source over here to envelope. So it's going to use our filter envelope over here, and it's going to modulate the pulse width up here. I'm going to turn the pulse width down a little bit so we get... So it doesn't sound too different right now, but as we start to patch it, you're going to definitely hear a lot of different sounds start to come out of this. So now, so it's like right about there. Let's hear. So it's definitely a really buzzy sound. We could probably turn the VCO mod amount up just a little bit more. So now what we're going to do, I had mentioned this just at the start of the video, we're going to do that double oscillator trick. So since the Moog Mother-32 always has both oscillators running, and you can access it via the patch bay, we can patch it into the external audio input, and then use that to create have both oscillators playing at once so we can actually hear that. So it's very simple to do. We take the VCO saw wave, and we just patch that to our external audio. So now, if I turn this mix to about 50%, you can hear that's, as you turn it more towards the right or towards 100%, you're going to hear more saw wave. Turn it more to the left, hear more square wave. So if we keep it in the middle, we have both oscillators playing at once, which is a really cool sound. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the cutoff actually all the way down. So right now you're actually not really going to hear anything because the cutoff is all the way down. But what I want to do here is utilize the envelope patch on here. So the envelope is this envelope right here. And what we can do with that is actually create some cool effects with it. So first I'm going to set up our envelope. I'm going to put a tack at about like 2% just to kind of remove some of the, there's sometimes a little bit of inconsistency in the beginning of the envelope. Sometimes it's a little bit rough and it can almost clip. So I like to put it at just like ever so slightly up a little bit just to kind of create a little bit of a transition into the note just so that there's no, harsh kind of transition. So I'm going to put a tack at about 2%. I'm going to turn decay to about the same, 2%-ish there, and I'm just going to put sustain on. So now it's going to just be however long you're holding the note for. So let's see, just listen to that. So, it's simple. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take our envelope and I'm gonna put it into the multiplier port here, listed as mult. And then I'm gonna take the first output, mult1, and I'm going to patch that over to VCF cutoff. So now, essentially I've recreated the VCF mod amount, but it's using this envelope here, and it's actually, seems like it's a more powerful envelope, as weird as it sounds. It's just like, it's able to modulate the knob more than the regular VCF mod amount knob would. So it seems like it's actually able to turn the cutoff knob, like in the circuitry, turn the cutoff knob even further. So it kind of creates a more, it like opens the filter even more, if that makes any sense, I guess. And then what I want to do is I want to kind of recreate almost like an overdrive effect with it. So I'm going to take the second multiplier output here. I'm going to patch that up to the VCA control voltage. So now I'm just going to turn VCA mode to on. And now if we listen to this, we get... So we can hear that it's starting to become like a really melodic sound, and it's definitely a lot louder now. I'm going to turn the volume down actually a little bit. So you can hear that it's definitely a lot louder now, and what that kind of allows us to do is once we go into Ableton Live and do some external processing, it gives us a lot more range to work with and everything, and it just overall is kind of creating that retro sound that I was talking about, where it's more of the 8-bit style, I guess, because it's using a lot more of the pulse width wave. So let's see, we're just going to kind of mess around with some of these values here. I'm going to take the VCO mod amount just down a little bit. I'm going to turn the mix a little bit more to the pulse width side. And so there is, you can hear that there's still that undertone of the saw wave kind of backing up the really thin pulse width wave that we've created now. So now if we kind of come in here into Ableton, we can do some processing with that. So I've got this little MIDI track set up right here. Let me remove these notes. So it's a really simple, it's just A sharp, C sharp, and not F sharp, just F, and then repeat it again, except it goes up to G sharp and A sharp. So I'll link it below just so that you guys don't have to sit there and write it out. But this is kind of what we're going to be working with. So if we listen to this now, what we get here is something that sounds like this. So you can hear we're starting to get a pretty cool sound with it. And it does have that older, like almost NES feel to it because it's using a lot of that pulse width wave. So now we're going to do just a little bit of extra work in Ableton. So just to kind of give it a little bit more life to it, I'm going to take a saturator, bring it down, and I don't know, I'll put it at maybe like 6.5 decibels for the drive. I'm just going to turn the soft clip on just to make sure that it doesn't overload the output. And now if we listen to that, so now it's just clipping it a little bit more, and it's kind of, overdriving it a little bit more just to give it a little bit more of a gritty sound, which is, how the old systems used to sound. So the next thing I want to do is just add some reverb, just so that this makes it more of a melodic sound. So really all I kind of want to do is I'll set the decay time here to like, I don't know, a little over 4 seconds, I guess. Like 4.5 is probably fine. That works. I'm going to take the dry wet down a little bit just because I don't want it to overload the, I don't want it to take up the entire sound. I do want the Moog sound to punch through and then the reverb to be kind of in the back. So I'm going to turn the dry wet down a little bit so you hear a little bit more of the synth. So now if we listen to that. So you can hear now it sounds almost like really dreamy. It's a really interesting mix of sounds. You get the saw wave, the pulse width wave, and then, you know, it's being overdriven. But then instead of being really harsh, the reverb makes it sound almost, like I said, dreamy. It's a really cool effect. So I guess the last thing we really got to do is just kind of add like a little bit of a drum beat to it. So I'm going to grab a simpler here, drag it to a new track. And let's see, I'm just going to see if I can find a kick drum here quick. So kick drum, that works, the one I had selected before. So I'm just going to do a typical 4 on the floor. So, you know, oops. So that's just a really simple 4 on the floor kick drum pattern. So if you listen to that, I'm going to sidechain in a second, but just to kind of get an idea. And then last but not least, I'm going to do the sidechain. So a lot of people usually use something like a percussion sound or some sort of a sample for their sidechain. I prefer to use the operator because it gives me a more controllable sound. So right now I'm just going to drag sustain down to negative infinity decibels, and really I'm just going to leave everything else the same except for the level here. I'm just going to drag the level up to 0. So I'm going to copy and paste this MIDI track that we created that has the 4, I guess they're technically quarter note kick drums, and I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to drag it onto the operator track. So if I just solo that right now and listen to it, it's just a quick little pluck now. So what we can do is use that audio and sidechain our Moog synth. So if we come over here, all we got to do is just take a compressor, press this little arrow here, sidechain, and then take that from the operator. And then you put the ratio pretty much all the way up because it's a sidechain. And then you can bring the threshold down to, I don't know, maybe like negative 25 to 30 decibels, whatever. Depending on your kick drum, if your kick drum is a little bit more prominent, it helps to kind of have the threshold a little bit lower to make more room in the mix for your kick drum. But now if we mute that track, so make sure that it's grayed out and leave our kick drum and our synth playing, we can listen to that now and we get. So you can kind of imagine the possibilities with this sound. It's a really cool, like I said, you know, we took a really gritty, kind of something that you wouldn't expect to sound like this, especially with like a pulse width wave. And you know, that reverb and everything kind of tied it together and made it sound really melodic. So you can kind of imagine the possibilities that you could use this for. You know, it could be like a really cool, you know, maybe like an intro to a song or like a cool breakdown, something like that. You know, really long notes would sound really nice with this. I wish the Moog did chords, but you know, for the time being, it does sound really good. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I'll leave the links below to the MIDI track, and if you guys have any questions, leave them below and I'll try to answer them. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.